Hello and welcome to Buzz About, discussions with skilled professionals about how they got there and why they do it. All recorded here at 15 North Studio in Phoenixville, Pennsylvania. On today's show, Pokemon cards.
Well, welcome to Buzz About. I'm Megan.
I'm Bert.
And this is Ben. And today we're going to talk about trading cards and specifically Pokemon. How you doing today, Ben?
I'm here. I'm doing good. It's
Great,
a good day.
great.
Good day.
Yeah, thanks for being here. So what is like the overall allure of Pokemon that got you into this?
I think, like as kids, like nerd culture, really, I'm going to call it, like just kind of like expanding the whole thing. Like every person hits like a point in their life where they're like, kind of like you're growing up and you're just playing sports or you're just playing with your friends. And then like you get introduced to like this huge world that you didn't know existed. Yeah. And for me, that happened at like 14, where you're sitting there and you just think that like life is just kick the can and street hockey. And then all of a sudden, like you go over someone's house and they got like, they're like, we're going to play Dungeons and Dragons today. And you're like, excuse me? Like there's a what? And then it expanded from there. Like I remember being at the pool and people were like trading cards. And I was like, are they like, what are they doing? They're like, oh, I just traded for a whatever. And like they're literally like like they're covered in like pool water, like chlorine and stuff. Like these are now like like $500,000 cards probably if they had kept them in good condition. But I was at the pool. I remember right where I was at, and like these kids were playing a game, like right on the deck of the community pool. And I was like, "What are you guys doing?" They're like, "Oh, we're playing Pokemon." And I'm like, "A what?" Like, God bless you, Gesundheit. And so you just sit there and you're just like, so you get introduced, like, especially I'm the oldest, right? I think that like if you're a younger kid, like you certainly have more influences, like older siblings, but I'm the oldest. So for me, like my parents didn't really let me out. I may have gone to like the neighbor's house or like right in front of the house where I was allowed to play. Mm-hmm. And then all of a sudden you get introduced to this huge nerd culture and you're like, what is this? And so it was Magic the Gathering, it was Dungeons and Dragons, it was Pokemon, and like your whole world like just expands creativity, like the creativity, and then you're like opening up those books, right? And the Dungeons and Dragons and you're seeing all the art for the first time, and really like what art influences does a 14-year-old have? And so it starts to appeal on so many different levels as a kid, whether it's artistic or collecting or like trading. And so that's really what got me into it is just like, there's a huge expansive world of, now I could have, more interesting relationships than just like, do you play street hockey? Or all of a sudden you're talking to your friends about the cards. They're bringing the cards into school. People are trading, you know what I mean? So it's, and then obviously as an adult, it's completely different, but I still appreciate those facts. And that at 14, that was like, it opened up a whole new world of nerddom and expression for me.
I never really understood it as, like a young lady back in the early 2000s, when Pokemon like started becoming a thing. But I can as you're talking about it, it reminds me of how I was really into book series, and it allows you to be a part of that story instead of just like reading it on the pages, which if you have like a very creative mindset, you can imagine what's going on in the book. But like when you're playing it, and you have the cards, right? They all have pictures on them.
Yeah, there's all the characters, and there was a TV show, and there was a magazine. There was all kinds of stuff that was coming out in like the late 90s, early 2000s. And again, like just like how sports give young kids like kind of like something to identify and align with, so they have a common point of interest. Pokemon, Magic, all these kind of other things. Also, there's other opportunities there. Mm-hmm. So if you're not really into, I remember I was the same way with football. It was like, these kids are talking about football in like 7th grade. Well, by God, I want to talk to those kids, so I'm going to talk about football. Mm-hmm. And Pokemon and Magic and things like that. They had the same effect where like it was something, a common point. Where I was like watching them play and watching people enjoy themselves and collect and talk about the cards. So then all of a sudden you start to learn and you learn all the characters and you're like, oh my gosh, that's a Blastoise, that's a Pikachu, and that's a Charizard. And you're like, that to someone who doesn't know Pokemon, it means nothing. But then all of a sudden to those kids, they're like, oh, he's cool. He's cool.
Right.
He's got the cards.
So how does Pokemon as its own solidify itself against all these other Yu-Gi-Ohs or whatever else is out there? Why Pokemon? Why is that so big?
Yeah, so I think there's really two major fronts that successful card games kind of like rely on. You need good gameplay, right? So like you look at like, because it's cool. Anyone can make, not anyone, but like you could have just a pretty picture. But if the game doesn't have an actual gameplay, a competitive point to it, that it usually doesn't have a ton of staying power, because how many times can you just look at the same character? Here's the character in a different outfit. It's like, it doesn't do anything for a lot of people outside of just the appreciation of the artwork. So at the end of the day, Pokemon's a game, and the competitive scene in the game expanded rapidly. So if you can have competitive gameplay, that definitely helps, and that's why Magic and Pokemon have kind of like really stood the test of time, as they continue to have very competitive scenes and formats that people enjoy. And then on top of that, collectability. So people started really getting into it because the companies, in their wisdom, made the game, some of the game pieces, quite rare, right? So the rarity of something made it special. And so like if every card was printed to infinity, then like you having a Pikachu and me having a Pikachu would mean nothing. Like, and oh, she doesn't have a Pikachu. Well, she could just go over there and get a Pikachu. Like there's Pikachus everywhere. But if he has a Pikachu that no one's ever seen before, then all of a sudden it's like, oh my gosh, did you hear about that Burt guy? He has, like dark Pikachu or whatever it is.
I was going to say, there's different card, like, because there are lots of Pikachu cards, right?
Yeah.
But there are certain ones that have more of a value than
Oh, yeah.
others.
Yeah, so the collecting side keeps the game relevant for a large percentage of the population who's still playing the game. They're also appreciating the fact that they have cards that are worth something, right?
Sure.
So it becomes a collectible. You collect sets, and then there's a financial aspect to it where an adult like myself, I'm like, oh gosh, like this is great as a diversity piece to whether it's my own personal finance or just an interest of, I don't mind paying $700 for a card.
Yeah.
Because in my mind, it's a $700 card. It's an asset, right? Like, so that appealed to me as an adult. Like I'm, 40 plus, and it's like, I was like, I couldn't just spend $700 on like a pretty picture or a kid's card game.
Yeah.
But like as it became more evident that it was really like there was collectability to it, that appealed to me as an adult. So to run a business about it.
Yeah, so buying, collecting, trading, selling. What's like, how much of all of those are you doing individually?
I try not to do too much collecting because, you can only like, I have a lot of cards.
Yeah, I've been in your house.
I
swear he has a dining room table, but you would never know because it just says cards all over.
There's cards everywhere. I wish it was more tax deductible. Like half of my house is pretty much covered in cardboard. I told him we didn't need drywall. We could just use the cards. We can remodel this in cardboard. It's a great insulator.
Pikachu wall.
Yeah, Pikachu wall. So so I try not to do as much collecting. I do collect some things that I believe are extremely rare. But like, again, I don't, as a business owner and someone who really enjoys it, I don't want to tie up so much of my assets into kind of like holding things that no one really can enjoy.
Yeah.
My kids play, so we do spend a lot of time playing. I've noticed so much in them, and that's what really just like kind of the origin story. My kids are really at the focal point of it because I saw the positive impacts of the game play, not just collecting or looking at the cards, but the gameplay forced my kids, especially during COVID, there's politicking involved. When you play Magic, the most popular format is Commander, which is a 4-player game, free-for-all. So as a 4-player game, free-for-all, there's 3 people that you're kind of negotiating with. I saw my then 5-year-old daughter and a 12-year-old son politicking, negotiating with grown adults, saying like, hey, if you don't damage me or hurt me this turn, I won't hurt you next turn. And they started doing math and reasoning. And what really, I remember the moment when I was like, this is really good, is I saw my son do something, and I was like, I've been playing for, 30 years. And I said, you can do that? I was like, you can, wait, what? What'd you just do? And he goes, you just do this, and then you win. And I'm like, I didn't know you could do that. And like, he's 12. And I was just like, oh my gosh. Like, I was like, learning. He's learning stuff. Like, he's learning deduction, he's learning strategy, and he's communicating. And then there's math involved, obviously. Like anytime you're swinging for damage or taking damage, there's basic math involved. And then what really like nailed the nail in the coffin was my daughter, because I took her to a tournament and she was like, oh, I want to play. And she beat like a 28-year-old dude Yeah, like in a tournament, she's 7 and she's like, Daddy, Daddy, because I was playing too, so I was at a different table. So she runs over. I'm like, "What's up, girl?" I was like, "How'd you do?" She goes, "I won," and I was like, "Get the hell out of here!"
Nonchalant.
She's like, "I beat him," and I was
That's amazing.
like, "Oh, did he cry?" Because I would have cried. I would have sobbed if a 7-year-old girl beat me. As a grown man, I would have been like, "Oh my gosh."
This
I
just
would,
happened.
I would have some. Let's have some questionable life choices.
Jeez. And as far as like value of these cards go, like you said, some of them are different and some of them are unique,
Yeah.
and things like that. But right before this, we mentioned like even things like the One Ring card from Magic the Gathering. Like, how is the market made so specific cards are worth so much or more than others?
Yeah. Again, it comes down to rarity. I mean, like
Yeah.
Pokemon in particular does a really good job of controlling their print runs. Like basically, like when they release a set, they might say, again, I'm going to use numbers. I don't know if these are even close to factual, but they might say, we're going to release 100,000 boxes of this. And that's it. And then in each box, like there's different rarity kind of like levels. So you have your common cards, your uncommon, rares. And then like for Pokemon, it can be a double rare, and then illustration rare, and then a special illustration rare. So it goes up to these things. And so just to give you an idea, a special illustration rare is only 1 per box. So if there's 1 per box and there's only 100,000, and then there's a couple different ones. So you might be looking at like there's only 10,000 in the world, of a particular card. And those popular characters, the special illustration rares are like full art, really shiny, really kind of like amazing looking pieces of art.
Yeah.
And now you're talking about there's only 10,000 out there. And if you pull one, like they can be worth hundreds, almost thousands of dollars, some of them. So and then it becomes a chase, right? That keeps boxes popular because now there's a chase involved. So these rare chase cards, they're not always the best gameplay, right? So sometimes they're not very particularly useful. But if they're beloved characters and the art is fire and they are in that special illustration rare category, like the price tags can be substantial.
So in selling, like you obtain one of these special rares, and is there a special platform? Are there like an online presence for people in this community who are trading? Are there like functions that are international that people show up to?
There is a whole closet culture.
Yeah.
There's trade shows, there's tournaments. There's, like you hear the cons, right? Comic-Con.
Sure.
There's Magic-Con, there's Poke-Con, there's all kinds of things where there's conventions where people are meeting. Almost anyone who's really in the sport has a trade binder they just carry around with them in case like they're going to go trade at these events. There's obviously stores, local game stores all over the place. So it's a huge culture. And then online, Pokemon's done a good job, and Magic's done an okay job of creating an actual online game. So they, that was the fear like 10 years ago, is that the whole game was going to go digital, and it didn't happen because players still want to hold the cards and play in person and be social. So there's an online aspect, but then online trading, there's a couple of trading sites like Card Kingdom, TCG Player, eBay, still very relevant in the trading cards space. So you can still see historical prices of cards. And there's a couple apps out there that will track card prices for you, so you can enter your collection, right? And you can see like, it's like your portfolio, right? Like you want to look at your investments, like these are your investments. They're just happen to be in cardboard and susceptible to damage. So
Yeah, right. I mean, like speaking of like, other things that people are into, you yourself have essentially a card room in Hammonton. And so talk about Cardboard Arena and why that started.
So we opened up Cardboard Arena 2 years ago. And again, it was that just the origin story was, it was COVID. I was into the game from 1994, 1996 into Magic. And my parents were like, they're just cleaning out the house. They drop off my old cards. And I'm like, cool. So pandemic hits. You never look at them. The parents give you old stuff all the time usually. And you're like, I'll look at that on a rainy day. Yeah. And so COVID hits and I have plenty of time to look at old stuff. So I pull out the cards and I was like, I should sell some of these. And I was like, I had like a $5 card. I think when I started, I had 33 cards. I was like, wow, I have 33 cards worth selling. So I ended up putting them on TCG Player to sell, and one of them sold. And I was like, oh my gosh, I just made $5.
Yeah.
And in something I essentially had no cost basis in. I had no, I hadn't bought it since 1994.
So you made $5 from one card,
Yeah.
and it just started from there.
Yeah, and then so I was like, well, I listed the other cards. I was like, and then I was like, oh. So then I called my brother and I go, you still got your Magic? You still got your Magic cards? He's like, yeah, dude, you want them? Yeah, I'll take them. And so I just I'm like freebies, like bring them in, and then like so today I have 35,000 cards listed for sale online.
Oh my gosh!
At the same time?
Yeah, right now, like today, I'll sell 100 cards today, sitting here with you guys. Like, and it's just, I ship all over the world. I ship, like, literally, like, yesterday I shipped to Japan, $250 order. It was 104 Pokemon cards.
Oh my gosh!
And again, I don't know, like, maybe you can't get them there. Like, because again, they're short printing these sets so tightly to keep values up and demand high, make it kind of like a artificial scarcity, if you will.
Sure.
So he ordered 104 Pokemon cards for me. Nothing particularly expensive.
Yeah.
But it ended up being $250, and I shipped it to Japan yesterday.
Wow, that's pretty wild.
And so the online store really grew like crazy, and I was watching all the positive impact that it was having on my kids, right?
Sure.
So I was like, I'm going to open up like a physical store. And if I can run the online store really successfully, the physical store can just literally be like a hangout.
Yeah.
Like I don't need, it's not my life. I have a day job. I don't need it to.
It should be noted, this is not, Pokemon cards are not your day job.
No,
this is still a hobby.
It's a hobby.
Yeah.
23,000 cards online.
35.
35,000.
Yeah.
I gotta go.
Yeah. So it's just a hobby. Yeah, just a hobby. Yeah, I think, and that doesn't include like all the sealed product, because like there's an investing edge to this, which is why it really started to appeal to me.
Sure.
So I probably have another 700 sealed boxes of cards, like just stacked up in my house in corners and stuff like that. So
do you do like box openings of them? Have you started doing?
Yeah. Sometimes I don't want to. I don't like you got to like wipe them down and like the sanctity of the wrapping. I don't want to open them. You know.
Yeah.
Sure.
They're precious. That's why.
Yeah, I was in your basement probably a year ago at this point, and you just had boxes on boxes on boxes on boxes, like you had a pallet delivered or something like that. And you said these I'm going to open, these I'm going to sell, and these I'm going to keep for a year or so. Yeah. Like, can you just sell the full box? Would you ever do that? Yeah.
Yeah, wow. I do. I have. So you sell the full box. I don't usually do it a lot because, again, they're short printed. So like if you have a box that was a good set and that has those chase cards in it, and then they're not making any more boxes.
Yeah.
So like if you're just sitting on a box, some of the boxes now, like an old box of Magic would probably run. Again, I'm just going to pick a thing that was released probably in 2002. Urza's Legacy's easily $7,000.
For the box?
For the box. A sealed box would be $7,000.
When it came out, how much is that?
$100.
No way. Oh my
God. So it's $100 coming out, maybe $80.
Yeah,
you know, day one. But now if you went to look in the world, there's probably 2. There might be 5.
That
like
are
listed.
unopened.
Yeah.
That are unopened. Yeah.
Yeah.
And so like people, not just myself, but a lot of people have started to kind of like recognize this, and they say, okay, I'm going to open some. I'm going to sell some in the store. I'm going to sell some of the singles, but then I might also keep a couple boxes or a couple cases of boxes aside because of the scarcity.
It's an investment.
It
and
becomes
now
an
that
investment.
It's become something that's, that has a longevity to it. It's not just a game that's burning out. Because how many years are we? How many years has Pokemon been around, or Magic?
Yeah, so 95.
30 years. Right?
Yeah, 95. So we're on 30 years.
So it's becoming like a
years.
timeless game now.
Yeah, Magic the Gathering started in 1993, so 32 years there. So it ends up being, these games have they've stood up to thousands of competitors, but they have this edge. They have the characters. They have the IP. Magic continues to purchase IP to come in. You mentioned the One Ring, like they purchased Lord of the Rings so that they could make a Lord of the Rings set for the player base.
Wow.
And people went nuts for it because now you have one of your favorite games or your favorite collectible game, and now it's Lord of the Rings themed.
It's a great collaboration. Yeah.
And it's a way that Magic's using the IP to introduce new people into the game.
Mm-hmm. That was going to be my next question. Like, how are they keeping up with people that are new to this game? Because, if you go to a tournament, I mean, I'm sure this doesn't happen, but if you go to a tournament and you're playing and somebody drops $100,000 card in front of you, to play the game, that's got to be awkward.
Yeah.
So, if somebody's just getting started, what should they be getting, or what should they be looking for, or how should they play the game? How to learn it?
Well, there's so many ways you can play the game. Like Magic has multiple formats. I'd say the majority of Pokemon players aren't actually even playing the game. Kids are collecting. Kids are Magic. is more game players and less collectors. Pokemon's the opposite, where Pokemon is mostly kids collecting and trading, and very few people actually playing the game. And I don't necessarily know why that is. Magic just has Commander, which is a 4-player format, which Pokemon does not have a multiplayer format. So I think that Magic's more conducive to there's that politicking aspect that I've seen in my kids. It is like there's nothing better than striking a good deal in a Magic game, and like watching it like backfire on the person.
Right. Yeah, sure.
So there's a lot to it, and so they both have their different positives and negatives to the game. But you're looking at a 32-year-old plus game, and what they've done is they've taken existing successful IPs, introduced them into the game to keep it fresh. So there's literally a Final Fantasy set that's coming out later this year. You have the Lord of the Rings one from a couple years ago. I just bought a bunch of SpongeBob SquarePants cards for Magic. Why? Just because they're never going to remake them. Like, how many times are they going to release SpongeBob SquarePants in a Magic card? It's not going to happen. My son just built a Black Panther deck, because the Marvel universe is being introduced in little spots. And there's a Spider-Man set later this year that they're taking different IPs and introducing people into the gameplay, and the art and things like that of Magic. And Pokemon doesn't necessarily need to do that, ironically. They have their own IP that is wildly successful. So they're just really they add new gens of characters, new evolutions and new characters to the thing as they go along, and then new sets release every couple months. Sure.
And so I want to start playing this tomorrow. What do I need? Just like a single pack? I need a bunch of packs. I need
Magic.
I need friends.
Yeah, you don't need friends. You can just come to my store.
So it should be noted, the store is not just for selling cards.
No, the premise is gameplay.
Yeah, great. Talk about that, yeah.
Yeah, so Cardboard Arena, let's get back to that, because I do want to say, like, I started it because I was noticing the positive impacts in my kids, and I wanted to have, physical location. I didn't want to have to invite everybody in my house.
Sure.
We were doing it over phones, like when we were playing during COVID, and I was like, let's just open a place. It'd be so cool to have a store. And so I opened up, and it was literally like my dining room table. I moved it out of my house, and I threw it into a warehouse. And then I saw another table on, Facebook Marketplace for free. I was like, I'll take that table too. And these old chairs. And I ended up with like 7 tables.
Yeah.
And I was like, let's just start Facebook posts and advertising that open play, free to play, come in, play games, board games, card games, not just Magic or Pokemon, but like anything people want to do, to give people. I wanted to really give my children and the people of the community a place to go.
Yeah.
So we're open like 5 to midnight, which is really like kind of abstract hours. But the idea is like, instead of sitting at home or going to a bar, like, listen, I like going to a bar, but like, some people don't. And people with children, like, they're not running off. So like, let's give them a place to go. It's not going to cost them $1 to walk in the door, and they can play anything they want on the shelf. Yeah. So like, they can pull off a board game, they can pull off Uno, they can do whatever they want. So that's what I started. And today, every Friday, Saturday, there's anywhere from 10 to 30 people there. Nice. And they just come in and they start playing, and nobody knew each other. Like, this wasn't like me and my friends. It was, you just made friends. So over the last 2 years, I've developed really good relationships, to the point where my son begs to go, because like, these grown adults, some of them 20, 30, 40, 50-year-old people, are like, he considers them friends because he's been going to the store for 2 years straight.
Oh, I really love this, because I think it's really important, like, especially for generations, like, of people of all sorts of ages who interact through games together. Because I don't know, as an older, like, as you age, you start to lose the imagination that 7-year-olds, like you were saying, the 7-year-old your daughter who beat the 23, 25-year-old, like, that person, while they may have been weeping, learned a lesson that day. They were able to see a different perspective. Like, when you intermix people of all sorts of different ages and bring it over a common ground, you really start to learn from each other and, remember things, like, see things from a different perspective.
Well, just to give you that, on that point, it was so important. The coolest part for me was watching my son learn how to lose. Magic's a 4-player game.
So important.
So it's a 4-player game, right? And the reason we called it Cardboard Arena was there's no electronics, right? So losing in person is humbling,
Yeah.
right?
Sure.
And it takes a special skill set at some point to say, if you don't feel it was fair, you still have to accept it.
Yeah.
So I was watching like a 12-year-old come in, get his butt kicked,
Yeah.
and he would come and be like, they targeted me. I shouldn't have lost. They were mean to me, right? Because there's 3 other people at the table, and if you become a threat, the other 3 people will band up to take you out,
Yeah.
to keep you under control. So at best, you're winning, what, 30% of the time if you're a good, or 40% of the time if you build really strong decks.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, like, you play a 4-player game, you're going to lose most of the time. More than half the time, you should be losing.
Yeah.
And to watch a 12, 13, and now 14-year-old boy have to sit there and just basically eat it, like, like you just got to accept it, dude. They won. And
Recognize that someone made a better play than you.
yeah,
Sure. Yeah.
and if you win, like, again, it's easy in the era of digital trash talking. You know, you hear all the videos, you watch all the sound clips of people like literally like yelling into their microphone at how much better they are. Winning in person was a skill that my son had to develop.
Yeah.
For him to sit there and, like, if he stomped the soul out of someone and then you watch them deflate, he had to decide whether he was proud of himself or if he had any amount of compassion for the whooping that he just put on someone.
Yeah.
So these are valuable skills that people are learning through human interaction in a competitive format. So there's just so many positives to in-person. Like, when you walk into Cardboard Arena, no one's on their phone. And that is the biggest
great.
pride
I
point for
love
me.
that.
And it's not a rule for
Sure.
the record. People can be on their phone, but you're playing a 4-player game. I mean, people are paying attention when there's politicking involved and things like that.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. You gotta.
you can go on our social media and you look at the pictures. Nobody's like sitting there glued to a phone.
Yeah.
That's great.
So it's great for the kids. Actually, I'll tell you this little story. It was the coolest part was when I first started. Obviously, I didn't have 30 people showing up day one. I had 4 7th graders that would come every Friday night, and they would walk in, and they're like, their parents dropped them off, first of all. So, like, if we want to talk about parenting, like, I'm like, hello, stranger. Like,
Yeah.
I was like, they did a burnout to get out of the parking lot. They're like, we are officially the cheapest babysitting in Hammonton. You can drop your kids off for free as long as they have a cell phone and you know me personally and clear it
Sure,
with me.
sure.
They throw their middle schoolers in here, and they come in, and the phones disappear.
Yeah.
And it's 4 7th graders. And then the best part is my son was in 6th grade at the time, I think. He didn't know them. Like, he may have known them, but he looked over and he goes, oh, like, do you guys want to play something? And this is not a kid. He had just been in COVID for 2 years. When he walked into, 6th, 7th, and 8th, there was a year there where no one had actually been in middle school yet. Because all 3 grades had never been there before.
Yeah.
And these
like a
kids came in
transition.
here in person into the store, and they go, you want to play something? What do you want to play? And these kids came religiously for a whole year. Every Friday night, playing games. They would rip through every board game, and then the ADHD would kick in. So 15 minutes later, they're like, I'm done with this game. I'm done. And they would throw it back on the shelf, and they'd rip off it, like pull out another game. And they just did it. They just kept doing it. And then one day they stopped showing up. And I told my son, I go, ask them why they stopped showing up. And the kid goes, we played all the games. Because in their head, they had literally gone through the whole library of board games.
Yeah.
But it was so cool to see them. And the parents were appreciative because they were like, yeah, like, they're out of the house and they had been holed up in the basement. And now and other new people were starting to come into the store.
Yeah.
Sure. So what's your goal for this whole thing? Like, I mean, obviously you're doing great things for the community.
Yeah.
People are safe, you know what I mean? They're not at home yelling at each other through video games, what have you.
Yeah.
Is there something beyond what you want to get out of this? Not just for yourself, but maybe for the community or for kids or?
Yeah. I think if there's 2 real things that my goal are. I want to continue to expand. I think that it's a viable business, mostly online. I think that every business, I'm a big business guy. And so I think every business at this point has to have some online component. I think online can sustain the physical store. I'm going to be able to obviously employ people, which is great for my community. But then I want to expand the size and scope of what we provide. And that includes like private room rental, because like, just like this, like many people need space, right?
Yeah.
Sure.
Like the studio we're in. So you need space to record. You need space to work on your content. I want to put in some artist, like, easel tables where the flat table can kind of turned to an angle so people can
Yeah.
have spaces to paint.
Sure.
And
I
then
love this.
and then like gather like the community. I want it to remain free to like come in and do anything you want. We make money just off of selling, all the Commander, Magic, Pokemon products. But really, the backbone is the online sales. So that's going to be the physical store. But then also, I want it to remain really like a safe place where people can kind of feel they can go.
Yeah.
Right. So we're going to have those kind of obtuse hours for a long time because, like if everything in a small town closes down at 6 or 7 on a Friday, it's like you run out of options.
I think those hours are great. It caters to, again, a wide range of ages where children who are getting off of school and are younger can come and they can have a family night with all these options that they don't have at home. And board game, like you were saying, on the online presence.
Yeah.
There's
and you're meeting new
lots
people
lots of like online gaming, but to have a physical board game, it requires you to put down your phone and pay attention. So great for younger children. And then again, a place to go till midnight. Like that's fantastic.
Yeah, it's pretty huge.
I'm so excited about this store. Like personally, that seems so cool.
Yeah, I love it. And it's not just me that is acknowledging this. I had for like that first year, there were many people that were walking the door and they would openly admit that this was the highlight of their week, that they couldn't wait to get here. They started ordering pizzas here. I've had moms roll up and they're like, do you mind if we order pizza? 3 pizza comes in and they just push the kids off to the corner. They're like, go sit over there. And then the moms will sit in the corner and just chit chat.
Yeah.
And it's like, it's social time, but like they're letting the kids get out. And of course the kids blow like $100, like trying to buy packs and pull cards and stuff. And like, I'm like, as long as they're having fun.
Sure.
So it's also purchasable. You can purchase things at your location as well. Okay.
So again, we have hundreds of products in the store for all those older sets. Like I've collected everything in the last 5 years for Pokemon and Magic. And so you can buy a pack of anything that's been produced in the last 5 years for both games.
Wow.
So like, and those packs range from the lowest would be $4 or $5 up to, $20 or $30 packs for some of the super rare or collector edition stuff. Mm-hmm. So kids come in and they buy packs, and like you had asked before, like how do you get started? You would buy packs, and eventually you could form a deck, in Pokemon, or just because decks have themes, right? So you wouldn't get all you needed out of one pack, but you could probably buy 2 packs, 3 packs, and probably be able to assemble somewhat of a, really mismatch of a deck that would make sense. So
I have a super newbie question.
It's okay.
So you can buy the things. I know nothing about this at all. How do I play the game? Where are there rules that come with the packs?
The packs aren't great about explaining the rules. The best thing to do is just come in and watch people play.
Yeah.
Obviously, like there's all kinds of content out there for how to play. But for me, we do host like a couple like how to play events.
Yeah.
So that's been like a really big hit in the store where I'll buy decks, pre-made decks. I'll just buy like 30 of them. And I did a learn to play Pokemon thing. And then I sat there at each table and I taught each kid like as a group, how to play. They all got their own deck, their own cards, and a free snack with like admission. But it was like a kind of a ticketed event that I did. I've run it a couple times and it's very popular because I think as parents, you watch the kid just buy packs and collect, and you're like, what a waste, right?
Sure.
But then if the kid will play the game, then you're like, oh, okay, like now he's playing something and he's playing with another person. It's social, and the parents come in, and like I said, with the pizza and the moms in the corner, it's social for them. So it starts to kind of spiral. But those learn to play events or they exist in our store, and they exist on the internet, obviously, to kind of figure out how to play. But Pokemon actually does a great job with a play mat too, that kind of has the rules, you can do on your turn, like kind of a beginner's tutorial playmat that will show you where everything's supposed to go.
You live in Hammonton, New Jersey, right?
New Jersey.
And you're a huge part of that community with like the Chamber of Commerce. I see you at like ribbon cutting events and things like that. Like how important is it for you not only to have, a place for people to go in the community, just be out there and help other people open their businesses and, cheer on their kids and whatever?
So I'm a wealth manager, like as my day job. And again, this was all part of the building the business. Is I moved to Hammonton. I wasn't from there. And I became involved in the downtown organization as well as the Chamber of Commerce. And it was really just to build relationships, to get to know people. I felt that was the best way. Volunteerism was the best way to kind of get to know people and get my name out there. So Eventually I became the president of the Chamber of Commerce, and I've done that for the last 6 years, which is why you see me in all the ribbon cuttings and everything like that. But I really enjoy the sense of community, right? Like it started, and again, anyone who doesn't tell you this is just lying to you, but like it started as I need to go get business, right? I need to build a business because I started from scratch in wealth management. That process probably stopped like 10 years ago. And now, but I felt so strongly about the positive impacts that like being involved was having on me personally. I believe in karma. And I was like, I'm just going to keep showing up and I'll just keep being the president. It's a 1-year term. They haven't gotten rid of me in 6 years. So I'm like the FDR of the Chamber of Commerce. So I was just like, yeah, like I love doing it because I started a business once. And like to go to all the ribbon cuttings and watch all the businesses grow, like business management, business expertise is my strong suit. It's what I enjoy doing. I always imagine one day I'll have a Shark Tank Hammonton, like Shark Tank, mini Shark Tank or something. But it's like, I love business. And so the Chamber of Commerce really kind of spoke to me as an opportunity to get to know people and to support one another in business. And I think with the economic times, supporting each other is so important, right?
Yeah.
Because small business is like, it's tough.
Yeah.
Yes.
You know, when rents are what they are and the cost of goods are what they are, and then obviously minimum wage or what your time is worth, it's hard. You can't just go out and scrap it for $6 an hour and be like, well, I'll make it work.
That's correct.
Everyone now needs the gig culture, the side hustle, another side hustle on top of that. I didn't necessarily do the cardboard arena to have a side hustle, but like it made sense in the economy, the way things are today. So being a part of the chamber, I always say, like, when people join or open up a business, I'm like, you're going to get to meet everybody you need to. You're going to find your insurance agent, your accountant, your wealth manager, whatever, your bookkeeper. All those things are available at your fingertips in the community. And so it's just something I really enjoyed. And there's a camaraderie, right? Me and you have this camaraderie. Like we're the two engineers that went off and tried to start our own businesses.
That's correct. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Well, I got inspired by you. I mean, if we're talking about
sorry.
that, like at the time, even when I got laid off from my engineering job, I went to a career specialist and they were like, and I was like, well, I can do this and here's my resume and I can do that and I can design this. And then she looked at me and said, you don't have to go back to engineering. You know that, right? And I was like, no, I don't. And then you started, your wealth management company on your own. And I looked around and I was like, I don't have to be an engineer. Like there's more to do. And it's interesting, now you've become, essentially an entrepreneur with, you're buying buildings and opening cardboard arena and you're still a wealth manager and, you have 4 kids and you're married. You're like, it's a lot, man. Like you're doing great. This is awesome.
And again, like that took courage, obviously, and it took courage for you to leave because you're trained to go and be an engineer and do this thing. But then, like, you remember that, like age is just a number, right? Like we don't have to have like all formal big boy jobs. And that was a learning process for me to have the faith to say, I can leave engineering. I can still enjoy these hobbies. I can still enjoy these cards. I can be a kid at heart, and it can be financially viable if you have the support. It's a privilege, like to have the support around you to be successful in those arenas. But it takes confidence, it takes your friends, and it takes that community. I feel like the people that have come to Cardboard Arena believe that they too can be like that. They can have a passionate job. They can be passionate about what they do, and they have the support of each other around. And I've heard people do it. Like I've heard people come into the store. I'll give you a story. There was a kid he was unemployed. And he was coming into the store and he was one of the ones who was like, this is the only thing I work. I will live for this. I live for Friday nights. Yeah. And at that point we were only open on Friday. So he had to wait all week to see us. And I didn't know this person before they walked in the door, and they're in their 20s. And so they were coming and he would make a lot of like disparaging jokes, like mental health jokes that you would be concerned about, like killing himself, right? Like the kind of like, oh, I'm just going to go home and kill myself. And it was like that type of stuff. And he was unemployed, underemployed, taking like the train, like couldn't drive, like didn't have a car, that kind of stuff. Like, and I'm not trying to like make it more than it was, but I was worried. Like the jokes were prominent enough. And like the kind of the story he was telling about his home life was prominent enough for me to be like, this Cardboard Arena, like what we've built here is important to this person.
Yeah.
And I watched for the last 2.5 years it subside. The job got better. He moved to another job. He moved to a better job after that. He went to the gym and the jokes disappeared. Most importantly, the jokes that I was worried about subsided to once every 6 months or once a year now.
Wow.
And it was like that effect, not just at Cardboard Arena, but as a chamber at Well, the effect of knowing that you're not alone and knowing that other people are going through things and other people have the same hobbies and interests and other people can leave the dead end job that they may feel they have to do because that's what their degree's in.
Sure.
Yeah.
You give them an outlet. You show them that it's possible. And then like things just start to look better. Things start to look brighter. And so I've watched these kids, and they're not kids, they're in their 20s. I've watched their life change in 2 years coming to Cardboard Arena. And the hobby allowed them to have the community, which is allowing them to live the better life that they want.
Mm-hmm. Just having a community and a support system like that, it's really important. And I love that that's like the foundation of the Cardboard Arena, that it gives the people a place to have camaraderie.
Yeah. Because, I mean, when you have kids, and it's, you want that for them. Mm-hmm. You want them to believe that they can do anything they want. And it's just, it's been so powerful. And it's part of our mission. Like I wrote it on the website myself. When we made the website, I was like, I want people to know that the most important part is the community, that we're building a community. We're not building a business. We're building a community first that will be a business. Because I just, again, all the things we've talked about, all those positive effects to my kids, myself, and my own mental health. This was an outlet for me just as well, you know, of like feeling like, hey, middle age, midlife crisis. Like, what am I going to do with my life? Am I going to be an engineer for the rest of my life? I hate this.
I hope not.
We don't do anything.
Yeah. So you're just making it okay for normal 45-year-old people to play Pokemon.
That's right.
Yeah.
Every Friday night.
Yeah, that's great.
Or a game in general. Just find your creativeness again, and don't be afraid to follow like that desire to be creative or to have fun or to find your childhood like passion again.
I think when you're in your 20s, there's this huge rush to grow up.
To succeed.
Totally.
To succeed.
Yeah.
There's so much pressure.
Yeah.
They're like, go to college and then get a job and like
succeed.
don't waste any money, right? Because there's this huge like kind of like the whole strategy of like retire early, FIRE method, whatever people call it. They want to just be super successful with money, super successful in my thing, grow up as fast as possible. And I'm hoping that like we can break some of that down. It's a great ambition, but like I've had sub 21, so like 19-year-olds in the store want to talk about finance. Because they know I'm a wealth manager. They'll come in, I want to get my stuff straight. I want to start doing the retirement thing. I'm like, you're 19. Bro, I didn't even know what I wanted to do.
Yeah.
Like I didn't know anything at 19. You know? Bert knows, he was there. He was an idiot.
Ben had a big afro.
I wanted nothing to do with like growing up at 19. I think my decision, so I went to a trade school to be a massage therapist.
Yeah.
Because in my head, I remember having this thought process. If I go to college, my only desire is to make new friends, party, and travel abroad. Yeah. Like that was my only goal for college. I didn't have a career path in which I knew that I wanted to go. Yeah. But it's, at 19, it's hard when you like.
You didn't have a wealth manager at 19?
No, I don't even have a wealth manager now, but I
have at least 2 or 3 clients in the store now. Like regulars that just eventually pulled me aside and were like, I want to get serious about money. I was like, I want to play Pokemon. Can we do both now? Sure. Like,
and that's where the politics.
I literally did a rollover like during a game one night. I was like, social. And I swing for 2 damage. I want to encourage everybody to keep find your passion. Like I think that the most important thing for me is like when I look at this and what we've done, like what a left turn, right? Engineering, like kind of like very stiff. I mean, for the first 5 years of my career, I wore a suit every day. And the ability to express myself took a tremendous amount of courage. Because I was like, I'm going to stop wearing the suit. And so I just want to encourage people, if you're watching this and you're listening to this, whatever you're doing, like it's possible to still hold on to your passions, to hold on to your childhood dreams, to hold on to whatever it is that makes you tick. It doesn't have to be your full-time gig. It doesn't have to support you, but like I don't want people to give up, because like I didn't give up on Magic and Pokemon cards, and it's now this amazing thing that I've created, and that came, trust me, I know it came from a tremendous amount of luck and privilege and support from the people around me. But I don't want people to give up, because I look at some of the people that come into the store that are or might be listening, that are living those dead end kind of things where they don't feel like they have options or choices. And I really hope that they listen to this and say, wow, at 44, I mean, the store's only existed for 2 years. Yeah. I never would have told you at 25 that I would have done this, or that it would even be possible. I didn't even know anything about this kind of culture. And now it's a real thing. And I hope other people listen and say, hey, I am going to do the other thing.
Yeah.
My favorite line, and I'll leave you with this, is like, I think it was Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson, and he said, he's like, you're not tired, you're just uninspired.
Sure.
Because you get home from work, you feel like I can't do anything. I'm exhausted. I don't have time, bro. I'm up till midnight at a store every Friday and Saturday night, and then I usually go to the bar afterwards.
Yeah, wow.
Yeah.
And every time I walk in, people go, "What are you doing here?" I was like, "I just got here, dude. What do you mean?"
I'm just starting.
Like, it's
Night's
1
still
o'clock.
young.
Yeah.
The night is young, but you are not tired. You are uninspired. And I hope other people find or go back to, they know what it's there. Go back to your passion, re-engage with it, and find some way to make it a part of your life.
Great. So thanks, Ben Ott, for coming up from Cardboard Arena. It's great having you here to talk about the buzz about Pokemon cards. Ben, thanks a lot, man.
Yeah, my pleasure. Do I just do the finger guns?
We are.
Is that like,
You got to do
see you later. I don't know.
Great.
Sorry. Social anxiety.
Thank you very much for tuning in. Please subscribe on all platforms for future episodes. If you'd like your podcast recorded or need a space for filming, please visit 15northvideo.com for more information.